This is Dying Your Way.
Welcome everyone to the Dying Your Way podcast. I'm Claire O'Berry and I'm your host. Today we will be discussing a topic that is pretty sensitive and overwhelming. It's just one of those times in our life, the first few hours after death and the days following the death of a loved one. So this episode will focus on what to do at the time of death and through the week of the funeral. This episode will help guide you through the next steps for those left behind and how to navigate the sacred first moments after death. This is filled with a whirlwind of funeral planning and the early steps that need to be taken to just getting all of the affairs and the estate settled. So it's just the beginning of that stage. So this conversation is not about rushing grief. It's about support and clarity and reassurance during a time that will just feel like a blur. So when a loved one dies, especially if it's expected, there's no need to rush, whether at home or in a hospital. You are allowed to linger, and I would encourage that. To sit with the body, hold their hand, talk, cry, pray, simply rest in silence. I often compare this stage of dying to birth. So when people are having a delivery, some people will deliver in 2 hours, and for some people it will take 36 hours to deliver a baby. And the same is true of a death. I mean, we can obviously see when the end stage comes and that is really starting what I guess you could call the delivery, the labor into death. But we really don't know or see what happens after the death has occurred. And maybe it's that lack of unknowing, but I really encourage people to continue to hold the energy that you were holding that space while your loved one was dying, after the loved one has died as well, because I think they can still feel your presence there, feel your love and support there, benefit from your prayers there. In fact, you're just like handing them over to the other side and to those that are welcoming them on the other side. So try to not let that time and that moment pass. I mean, it's very sacred. It's very intimate, and it's also unrepeatable. So try not to rush that moment in time, and you'll just have a feeling. You'll know when it's okay to move on to the next step and what needs to be done. And it could just be a few minutes or it could be a few hours, and that's okay. So when you feel ready, the body will be gently prepared. Usually it's the hospice nurse that comes in and will take over to do that and allow them to do that. They'll do things like be sure the eyes are closed and the mouth is closed, and they'll place the arms at the side. I know it's really nice to, as you're preparing the body for other people to come see the body, to just bring one hand outside of under the sheet so people can touch the hand, feel the hand. Just having that hand available is a nice touch. There will be an official pronouncement of death that comes, and that will be made by the doctor, the hospice nurse, or some other authority will actually call the time of death that will go on the death certificate. Now, if you're home alone and death occurs, call the hospice nurse, the case manager, or the attending physician. Likely you've talked about this moment prior to it and you know who to call. Do not automatically call 911 or 000 unless it is an unexpected death. Otherwise, the first responders are going to come, they'll begin CPR, and they'll likely try to transport the body to the hospital, which is unnecessary. So if your loved one has a medical alert necklace or bracelet, something like that, just press the button, and then they will automatically call the medical power of attorney, and you're probably right there, and we'll get the next steps going that need to happen. And let me be really clear. So if someone dies unexpectedly at home without hospice care or a known terminal condition, then seek immediate help by calling 911 in the States, 000 in Australia, or whatever your country's equivalent emergency number is. So if it's unexpected, do call 911. Okay. Once the death is pronounced, the legal next steps depend on where you are, what state you're in, and the wishes of the deceased. Now, if you've selected a funeral director, call them when you're ready. And if you're planning a home funeral, you might lower the temperature of the room where the body is. You want to keep the body cool for a longer period of time. Maybe you even have a cooling blanket on hand. You could even go out and purchase some dry ice. Things that will keep the body cool will preserve the body longer. Now, if the loved one that is deceased was an organ donor, then you need to respond quickly to that because time is of the essence. And there should be a number that you already have to call if that's the case. But so what we're talking about here about waiting and delaying and everything is really the case for everyone but someone that has chosen to be an organ donor. Even like my mother, who did a whole body donation. I mean, that was fine for her to stay at home for a few hours after her death. We did call the hospice nurse was there, but we did call the funeral director who, was an hour and a half away. So, I mean, it took him at least a couple of hours, I know, to get there and take the body for transport to the airport where she was going to go to a university in Florida. And that had all been prearranged, and my mother had prearranged all of that beforehand. So each country and state, they will have rules regarding death certificates, body transport, and the disposition of the body. Wouldn't be a bad idea to be familiar with those rules before death occurs, but usually a funeral director can handle all of that for you. But across all cultures, this is a moment for the utmost respect for the body and for the family. So maybe while the body is still present, if there was an immediate family member who wasn't able to be there at the deathbed, maybe you might do a video call of some sort so they can be with you in that moment. But if you want the immediate family to know first. So think of concentric circles. So there's the next of kin, the immediate family, and then there is, an extended family that you would want to include. So let the people closest to the deceased know first. Let that extended circle of friends and family know second. And then and only then would you even think about posting anything on social media. What you don't want to do is to post the death on social media, which would be probably a lot of people would have that inclination, but stop before you do and think about the people who haven't been notified, who could find out about it on social media, and how devastated they would feel if they were finding out about the death on social media. So that's just a little bit of social media etiquette. So before we go too far, I want to remind you that if you have taken the Dying Your Way end of life training, your loved one has already created an end of life plan, and it should be with their paperwork. And included in that would be not only the obituary that they created, but a very detailed Dying Your Way end of Executor Checklist, Dying Your Way Executor Checklist. And this is going to be one of the most valuable resources for the next of kin, for the executor, to just start making things happen. So upon your death, your loved ones can retrieve this plan and use it as a step-by-step guide through these first few days and weeks. And it's going to save just a lot of confusion, a lot of stress, and unnecessary heartache. So, and I'll just add, I've seen a lot of people in the end of life close to or after when the family does not know where that paperwork is, or there's conflicting interpretations of that paperwork, and it has created sometimes very charged situations about who's in charge. And let me just say, the next of kin takes authority over the body. The role of power of attorney, which was in place while the deceased was alive, that role no longer exists. If there's a will, then there's an executor that's named in the will. So the power of attorney goes away, and the executor is now in charge of all of the financial and legal affairs. But it's the next of kin who has authority over the body. And that's just a really important detail that a lot of people don't think about. Okay, so we've talked about notifying the immediate family. We've talked about social media etiquette. Once people get this information, they will be asking questions of you, which you may or may not know the answers to. Things like, when is the funeral? Where is the funeral? How can I help? Things like that. And be prepared with the things that you do know. But if the details aren't set, just let them know how you will be sharing updates later. It might be contacting, this is our funeral home. You can contact them for details, or we'll be sending, a Facebook Messenger to everybody about the details. Just have some idea about what you know and what you don't know and what you're going to say to people, because they will start asking questions. If someone offers to help, let them help. What ways would be helpful for you now? Well, things like meals, childcare, running errands, maybe just sitting with you, these are acts of love and practical acts of love that can really matter a lot. So don't turn those offers of help away. But at the same time, if it feels like it's a burden to help them help you, you know what I'm saying. You shouldn't have to stop where you are in your immediate mourning and grieving to tell other people, this is how you can help me. I'm just offering this. So if they ask and you need someone to check on your pets, you can ask them to do that. So have somebody there track who has been contacted, who hasn't been contacted, and if there's any kind of follow-up that's needed. So you're not, doing double duty there. Be great to just have one person assigned to handle communications. Okay, the week of the funeral. So this is where grief and logistics collide. So immense mourning. You'll be facing many practical decisions, particularly if there has been no funeral planning. So you can re-listen to the previous podcast that I did on funeral planning, or you can just ask yourself these questions that are just really important. How would your loved one want to be remembered? Big one, what can you afford? And what supports the family best right now? So, it's not just you that's mourning the loss of your next of kin. Maybe it's children or stepchildren or people that also need to be considered during this week and how they can be included in the ceremony or be part of what's going on. So for funeral arrangements and body transport, you'll contact your local funeral director, and they will likely schedule a time to meet you possibly the next day to sit down and make the arrangements. I highly recommend that you take someone into that meeting with you for support, a lot of different types of support, but I also recommend that you know your budget prior to walking in. Funeral homes are great at guiding you and to help you see what the options are: a traditional burial, cremations, green burials, things like that. So there are a lot of different ways you can, these are just big choices that you'll have to make if it's not prearranged. So check any paperwork that you have for pre-planned funerals. Check burial insurance policies, life insurance policies, union death benefits, employee benefits, and in the United States, even in Social Security, they have a small lump sum payment for expenses. So if you're kind of adding that all together, that can kind of be a basis for what the budget of the funeral is. And you just don't want to create a huge financial debt for yourself, because you can have a lovely service that's very inclusive of people without spending a lot of money. I've been to several in-home memorials that were, generally the person had been cremated, but they were intimate, but they were very profound and very moving and did not break the bank. But it was the closure, pardon me, that everybody needed. So one of the first legal steps that will be securing the death certificate, and the funeral home will help guide you through this. But you'll need details like the full name and date of birth of the deceased, They'll put the date of death, they'll put the cause of death, they'll put the name of the attending physician on there. They'll need the Social Security number for the deceased. They will need the parents' names of the mother and father of the deceased. They will need the resident address for the deceased. And like I said, the name of the attending physician. Now, when you order multiple copies, and it'll cost you money, but I'm telling you, this is where you want to spend a little extra money and order multiple certified copies, because places like the bank, insurers, government agencies, they're not going to accept photocopies. They need to have the original certified copy of the death certificate. So in Daddy's case, I think I ordered 12 and maybe used 9. So you will need more than you think you need. Other immediate tasks that need to be considered like pretty soon is securing the home, the vehicle, and the pets of the deceased. Contact any employers or employees they need to know. Choosing a celebrant or clergy member for the funeral, and preparing the obituary. And again, I hope you've already done that through the end of life training, but if you're going to publish a notice of death in the paper, or you want to prepare a eulogy, somebody needs to go in a quiet place and start putting that together. Again, keep a list of the people that you're going to want to thank. And that's just something to assign to somebody else, quite honestly, but keep track of that. And so we already talked about the next of kin has the authority of the body. We talked about the power of attorney role is over, and that if there's a will, the named executor steps forward. And if there's not a will, the next of kin takes on this role of being the executor, managing the estate and the financial responsibilities. And so that's how that shakes out. Now, the week of the funeral and the days leading up to the funeral have been for me one big blur. And some people feel oddly energized because they have something, specific to keep their mind on it, and kind of they're postponing their grief more than likely. Others move through just on autopilot. And I know when I lost my husband in 1985, I was in an absolute fog. I mean, there were so many details and kind gestures that so many people extended to me that have sadly faded from my memory. But, and this is just weird, the people that I thought should have done something but didn't, it's like that is something that is a stark memory for me, and a hurtful memory. I mean, I don't have the same charge that I used to about it, but it did teach me a lesson that it's important, that the experience that you're going through is acknowledged by others, and that the grief that you're facing is acknowledged by others, especially and if the circumstances around the death are complicated. Some people, if it's a complicated, unexpected death, I mean, people can just say some really hurtful things, or not purposefully hurtful, but insensitive things, or in my case, just should have been there and weren't at all. And that could have been because of their own discomfort over the situation, or I don't know. But now when I know someone has passed away, and particularly if it's unexpected and complicated, I will reach out and try to be in touch with the next of kin, that person that I know that's suffering. Say their name. Just say their name. But anyway, we're going to do a whole podcast on grief and bereavement, and I'm going to bring in people that have some real knowledge in this area to interview. But you are, deep in your mourning phase, and your reactions to that could be all over the place. And, again, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others, there is no right or wrong. Your feelings just simply are. So all I can say, you just have to go through it, be in it. And I'm not going to tell you what to feel. Just, you're in the middle of it, and my heart goes out to you. So yes, do something for those that are left behind, even if it's just a simple home memorial for a small group of people like I talked about. You can have a big funeral in a big church. You can have a cremation ceremony. You can have a memorial in nature. You can do home ceremonies, but do something that can bring closure, that hopefully includes laughter and tears and a shared honoring of the life, because those memorials are for the living, and I do believe for the dead as well. The prayers that we say for the dead, and I've heard this said by, spiritual teachers that from different traditions, but the prayers that we say for the dead and dying actually support and lift that spirit up to go into a higher realm. So I think the prayers that we say for people, that we really do say, not just thoughts and prayers, but when we really do have thoughts and really do have prayers, that makes such a difference. So you can be part of that as well. So you're going to remember some version of this week forever. And many people look back on it in awe and are just really not quite sure how they made it through. And I've just also experienced at funerals that, particularly when there was discord between people before the death occurred, that the funeral itself was a time of bringing people together. Because in the end, none of that stuff matters. And the only thing that really holds families together are the love that we have for each other. When the last guest leaves and the casseroles have stopped arriving and the reality of after begins, there are so many practical tasks to continue. And meeting with a probate attorney if needed is something that, many people have to do. Closing bank accounts, because consolidating assets, contacting the Social Security, Veterans Affairs, insurance companies, what would be the equal counterparts in your country, stopping utilities, stopping subscriptions, stopping automatic payments, have mail forwarded to a new address, notifying credit agencies to prevent fraud that happened. And yes, sadly, there are people that are just looking through death records to take advantage of that. So notify the credit agencies of the death. That's really important. Canceling memberships and canceling social media accounts. Not as easy as it sounds, but I would recommend when you want to close social media accounts, the easiest thing is to just Google, how do I close the Facebook account for a deceased loved one or something, in Google, and just follow those prompts. So it's a super long list of the tasks that needs to be done. And I know here in Australia, well, when we did the executor checklist for Dying Your Way, we were actually going through thinking about Australia and thinking about the United States. So, there are other checklists that you can get, but you just make it as easy for yourself as possible and really think through all those little details and, check them off as you go so you don't have to worry about it anymore. And again, you can delegate a lot of this stuff. There are some things as the executor or next of kin that only you can do, but the more that you can delegate this week after the funeral, I would really highly recommend that. One of the things is things like sorting through belongings, coordinating meals, putting together an estate sale, things like that. People want to help, let them help. I think that's a great idea. So above all of this, what I'm really saying to those of you that have just lost your loved one is taking care of yourself. Your own health matters, especially now. Chances are you've been running on empty for a long, long time. And you're probably exhausted. And it's just really hard right now. So when exhaustion sets in, you just have to give yourself permission to rest. You need to eat light but nourishing foods, sleep whenever you can, get out and walk in nature if you can, and accept help. Accept help. People want to help, so just accept that. And again, it shouldn't put extra work on you to figure out ways to make them feel better. But if there's actually something they can do, like, could you find somebody to mow my lawn, please? Or, go to the post office and grab my mail, or just things like that. Makes other people feel better, okay? So we'll be talking about this more, but grief does not follow any particular trajectory or on any timeline. And certainly doesn't end after the funeral. It morphs and it recedes and it returns. And I almost felt like spiraling. I'd go down and then I'd come back up a little bit, back down, up a little bit higher. It was just like all over the place. So that's normal. That's just normal. And you've probably heard this quote. I won't say who, but the father that was talking about the death of his son. It says, you're moving on when you can smile instead of cry when you remember them. And that shift might take months or years, but it will come in its own time. So the hours and days after death are overwhelming. They're sacred. And they're just filled with a lot of goodbyes and practical necessities and things that need to be done. And in the middle of that, there's going to be waves of grief that will arrive all at once. And then you could be just laughing hysterically. It's just going to be that kind of roller coaster. And in some ways, you're just your most authentic self because of the vulnerability that you're going through right now. So anyway, my hope is that today, going over this, walking through some steps that need to happen, it makes it a bit easier for you, makes you feel more prepared, less alone, and more able to move gently through this threshold when it comes. So remember, if you've taken the Dying Your Way training, your end-of-life plan and your executor checklist are there to guide your family step by step when this time has come. So thank you for joining me, and for this tender conversation. And until next time, take care of yourself, and may you find days that are filled with peace and love. Surround yourself with people that love you. You deserve it.
Thank you for joining us on Dying Your Way. If it's inspired you, then please spread the word. Leave a rating and review so others can find out about us. To learn more, connect with us on Facebook or our website at dyingyourway.com. A special thank you for the artist Mel Dobra for letting us use her song, Smoke and Flame, as the soundtrack of our show. I invite you to return, hear each episode, and be part of the conversation on death literacy. I am Claire O'Berry, and this is Dying Your Way.
Go